What's going on, guys? We are live. Tonight we have a Charles, aka the Handsome Home Buyer Real Estate. I'm just trying to pin Revolution. Give me a second as I try to pin. Let's see, I've never done this before. Bear with me. Pin comment. There we go. All right, cool. So got Charles on tonight. He is a flipper from Long Island, very close to me. Does a whole bunch of other stuff too, but I'll let him introduce himself. He's also throwing an event all day Sunday. I'll let him tell you about it. I just pinned the address in the comments, so you can see it right now. If you're on the IG Live, go check it out. It's all day Sunday, but he'll tell you more about it. That being said, Charles, thanks for coming on, bud.
Good, man. I put the hat on after you made that comment about the glare on the top of my head, screwing up the camera. So
keep people more focused on you than me, so should have left it off.
Nice. Good to be here, man. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
No, thanks for coming on. I don't know what you want to start with. You want to start with the event, or you want to tell people who you are first?
I guess best to tell people who I am before we go into the event, right? So
sure.
My name is Charles Weinraub, aka in the real estate world, the Handsome Home Buyer, Long Island's #1 fix and flip investor. I've fixed and flipped / made into rentals over 300 houses in the last 5 years. Finishing up getting my master's in real estate development at NYU. I have a number of commercial development deals in the works. My ultimate goal within the next 5 years is to have a private equity fund. As far as the event goes, we are raising money for leukemia and lymphoma. So we decided to put this event together. Never been done on Long Island. It's called the Real Estate Revolution. Originally, it was going to be at the Tillis Center in front of 2,250 people. We were going to sell 2,000 tickets, and we were going to give away 250 seats to high school and college kids. And when we did that, we were going to raise probably somewhere around $1 million with the campaign for Leukemia and Lymphoma Society. Alas, obviously everything has gone on, and now we've kind of done a whole 180, and we're going to be streaming the exact same event live for free, April 19th, which is this Sunday from 12 to 8. And we have, which includes this handsome man with the fantastic head of hair. We have 9 of the top investors / real estate professionals on Long Island, in my opinion, in fix and flip, tax liens, tax deeds, construction, multifamily, design, legal. We have a lender panel. It's if you ever wanted to learn about real estate investing, you got to be there. You have no excuse to not be there.
Yeah. No, I think it's awesome, and we're super happy to talk. I know, would have loved to have it live in an event with 2,000 people. I would have I thought it would have been a great atmosphere and a ton of great things to do. Unfortunately, we can't. Got to make do with what you got. So, excited to at least talk about stuff and hopefully provide people some distraction from what's going on and some value from some other stuff. So, excited to do it. Excited to be a part of it. Excited to hear everybody else. So. Yeah, April 19th, starting at noon Eastern time. Go check it out. Go to lirealestaterevolution.com. With that being said, let's get into the meat and potatoes. This whole 30-day series I'm doing is just talking to different people, hearing the effect of COVID-19 on their business, their real estate, their investing, and stuff like that. So can you talk to us a little bit about what it's been like the last few weeks for you, your holdings, your businesses, your investing, and stuff like that?
It's kind of like, ironically, it's kind of like business as usual for me, but for me, it's been more of an opportunity than anything else. And I was positioned very conservatively, so I really haven't had a lot of problems so far. Knock on wood. I fixed and flipped a lot of houses, but the last 18 months, I slowed down, not because I didn't want to slow down, but there was a lot of private institutional money that came into the space that, flooded the market with very high LTVs and very cheap rates. And it allowed a lot of inexperienced first-time people to get in, which ultimately inflated the price of the purchase price of distressed product.
No, so, I think, that's got to be tough. And we're hearing that across the board for the last couple of years, but continue.
So there was that. And then basically overnight, those institutional lenders went out of business. Bang, that's it. They lost their credit lines. And when they come back, they're going to come back much more conservative. So it kind of reset the market in a way. At the same time, even though there's a lot of craziness going on with, a lot of unemployment and things like that, I don't think this is going to last so long that it's really going to impact greatly for the long term the first time homebuyer market, which is what I typically focus on, which is houses in Nassau County that sell for under 550 and houses in Suffolk that sell for under 450. So I've been buying. I've got 8 properties under contract, new deals in the last 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to continue to buy aggressively because I figure by the time I close on those houses, let's say 60 days out, by the time I renovate them, it's another 60 days. We're 4, 5, 6 months down the road. I think we're going to be in a better place. And most people are just hanging out waiting and they're like, I don't wait to see what happens. But I kind of also feel that if you wait too long, by the time you get in, it's all going to be gone.
Yeah. No, I know for me, I've had 1 or 2 people already reach out to me from the area and ask about, buying the first home and what do I think is going to happen and all this stuff. And, I don't really know, just from the standpoint of nobody knows, but also I'm not really in the Long Island residential market. I don't follow it. I don't track it. I don't look myself. So I don't really know. What I do think is interesting, and we started talking about it a little bit before we started recording, my thought process was I could see a lot of people leaving New York itself, whether it's Long Island or the boroughs. You were more of the mind, at least, of people just definitely leaving the boroughs and maybe coming to Long Island. And I'm curious if that will have any impact on the market and where prices are and rentals and things like that. I don't know what your thoughts are there.
Well, this is kind of what I see, and I was discussing this with my buddy Darren Bell. Darren, I see you. What's up? So essentially, my feeling is that I've been talking to a lot of people, talking to a lot of brokers, on top of the fact that you had so much pent-up demand for that first-time homebuyer house, and there was such little inventory to begin with, and now you have auctions not going off, and now you have investors that are out of the game. I think there might be a little bit of a lag, but then I think we're going to rock it up in that particular segment of the market. A lot of people I talk to in the boroughs, and if you look back at 9/11, which is different but similar, a lot of people were like, get me the fuck out of the city. And especially there's still talks right now of, oh, what happens if this thing comes back in the fall, et cetera. People don't want to be, held up in a small apartment where they're afraid to go into the elevators, where they don't want to do it. So I think on top of the demand we already had, I think we're going to have an influx of people that are like, you know what, all I hear people is saying, like, I need a backyard, I need grass, I need space.
Yeah, that's literally, we recorded the podcast with Diana today, one of the other speakers at the event, and her and John were having that exact conversation where they both live in a house and they were saying, this sucks, but thank God I have a yard. Thank God I'm not in a, 1,000 square foot apartment with, my significant other and kids. Like, that would be brutal. Like, I got out of my apartment and I had one roommate that I was going to have to split it with. And I was like, this would be terrible. And now I'm out in my mom's place out east, luckily. And I think I'd probably be going crazy in that apartment with somebody else. I could probably do it if I was alone because I'm okay by myself. I'd still probably go crazy. But yeah, I think there's definitely going to be that demand still for the first time home buyer. I tend to agree with you. I think it's probably going to be okay. I don't think we're going to see like crazy dips in pricing. Like, that's what I was telling my one buddy. He was like, do you think we're going to see like a steep discount? Like, we were thinking about December. Should I try earlier and stuff? I was like, you might see a little bit of a discount, but I was like, I think you're probably, under double digit discounts, if even that high. Yeah. But I said, it's also going to depend, where you're looking to, more so than just all of Long Island. So, tough to really say. I do think, though, I think the main driver for people staying in New York right now is their job and their family and friends. If you don't have those things here, you're not really tied to this area. And most people are leaving, which is why we've seen like either a net wash in population or like even a decline in the area of population growth. I think this could be a really strong catalyst of like, hey, I love you guys, but I got to get the hell out of here. And I could see a lot of people moving because it's like everybody understands your dollar goes further outside of these areas. They get that logically. Like, up here, they get it. They're like, we should move. But here, they don't want to move. But now it's like, now the fear, I think, could see overcoming the desire to stay and a lot of people moving. I don't know if it's necessarily going to impact the space you're in. I think I agree. It probably won't be hit, but I could see a lot of people deciding to get out of here, even Long Island, because Long Island's been hit almost as hard as the boroughs from number of cases and contaminated and deaths and stuff like that. So
Yeah, I mean, to complement what you're saying, I think the way people are now working in regards to a lot of people are working at home, I think that can just is fuel to the fire, basically what you're saying. So, I mean, I think COVID is essentially going to change everything.
Yeah.
It really is. And the crazy thing is, I think for the better. I don't think just change in general, in my opinion, is always a great thing. If you're the kind of person that welcomes change, there's a tremendous amount of opportunity that comes with that. If you're not and you freeze up, it's not good. But I think it's like history always repeats itself. There's cycles with everything. The problem with people, the economy, the world is that people live like assholes. You know, if you don't overextend yourself
Mhm.
and you understand that there's going to be good times and bad times, you can cruise through the whole thing and everything will be fine.
Yeah. No, I think that's a big thing. I mean, I've had conversations for the last 2 years with people, especially newer investors, and the theme has always been, well, if the bank's willing to give me X, why would I take anything less? And it's like, I want to bang my head against a wall until my brain goes numb, because the downside is something that a lot of people don't analyze. And it's leverage is great, right? People always want to talk real estate because you can leverage your property, you can leverage returns, whatever. You can also leverage your losses too. You know, if you owe 80% on a property and that property goes to zero, well, now you probably owe 80% of that. Obviously, that's not always going to be the case. Most properties don't go to zero, but you know, you can easily go in the red on your equity. You may not just lose money, you may not lose all of your money. You can actually owe more than what you've invested. And a lot of people don't think about that possibility when they get into it. And when they compare it to, you know, the returns on stocks or other investments, yeah, your stock can go to zero, but good chance you're not going to owe anything. So, you know, that's always been something that's driven me crazy for the last 2 years. If nobody wants to look at that side of the coin.
No, without a doubt. Everybody's always chasing what's sexy. Meaning, you and I have had this conversation before.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you guys do multifamily across the country, but you're also doing trailer parks and things like that. When I started buying rentals about 3.5 years ago, I started doing Section 8 rentals. And people are like, why would you do that? You can get more money, this, that. They trash the apartment. But like, hey, guess what? About 80% of my portfolio is Section 8 rentals.
Mm-hmm.
And the government's paying me without a problem.
Yeah, no, you're probably in a better position than most. And I definitely want to touch on that because I think it'll be interesting to compare and contrast. You might even be in a position where your properties are going to be overvalued in the short term because people are going to now see the benefit of Section 8. They're going to become overvalued. You may be in a prime position to kind of offload some of those things for more than what they're worth, but topic for another day, and who knows what you want to do. But yeah, can you talk to me a little bit about, with your rental properties, what the process has been like? Now it's April 17th, so we're more than midway through the month. Everybody wanted to talk about what collections were going to be like for April, and I've been talking to many, many people, and everybody's posting on social media and stuff what their collection rate has been compared to previous months, and national articles on the collection rate. What's it been like for you?
Zero change. Literally zero change. So I have, again, like let's say 20% of my portfolio is cash tenants.
Mm-hmm.
All those people have paid. The ones that are like a little bit habitually late were their same little bit habitually late. On the Section 8, DSS, CDC, etc. Those, what happened was, and my property manager, Mark, is amazing, and he was really, really on this. As soon as those people, because some of those people have to pay a portion. Let's say they're paying, anywhere from $8, anywhere from $0 to $1,000 of the rent. The minute they lost their job, he found out, he told them, call the CDC caseworker, call your Section 8 caseworker, let them know. They immediately adjusted it on their end. The government picked up the entire tab, sent us letters. Yep. So that's what happens. So these people have to pay up to 30% of their income. However, they have to have income. So if they don't have income, the government, CDC, Section 8, et cetera, they pick up the entire thing.
Interesting. I did not realize that. I just assumed I'd never, because we tend to phase it out because we just don't like having to deal with such a small percentage of, most of the buildings we buy, don't have vouchers on the property. You can have voucher tenants or you can have voucher units or properties in total. Yeah. So we never buy with contracts on unless we can, phase it out or something. We had one property that did. And then it makes no sense to have such a small percentage of your tenant base have it, because you can't, you don't want to have two different types of things, and this small portion is not what you're doing for everything else. We just tend to phase it out. So I didn't even realize that was the case, that as people lose their source of income, that they just pick it up. How quickly is that process?
Pretty quick. So here's the thing. Let's say you can't get it for that April 1st. It retroacts. So the next month, they're going to send you a check for what they owe you effective the moment that person lost their job. So here's a lot of the nuances about, Section 8 and CDC that people don't know. And I'm going to teach about this in great detail and how to do the analysis on Sunday. But these people wait 3 to 7 years to get a voucher, which is free money. So typically, they're not going to trash your place, nothing like that. You have a caseworker that you can call and speak to in case there's any kind of issues. And believe it or not, they get involved and they regulate these people. And if there's a problem, they tell them, you got to get out. Here's a 30-day notice. You got to get out. Now, these people don't want to risk losing their voucher. So when they move for whatever reason, they have to be current on everything from your electric bill to your rent with the old landlord. Otherwise, they cannot move.
Interesting. So why do you think Section 8 gets such a bad rap then?
People just don't understand it. They don't look into it. They just don't understand the rules and regulations. I think it's a combination of different things. Are Section 8 rents lower than market rents? Yeah, absolutely. But what I've learned in my experience is you don't lose money on getting slightly lower rents. You lose money when people leave. When people leave and you have vacancy and you have to have some kind of make ready, paint, etc., you have a 2 weeks or a month, whatever it is, 2 months down, that's when you lose money. So when I do the analysis on all these properties, I'm doing the analysis based on Section 8 program numbers.
Interesting. Yeah, I think that's where I think a lot of people struggle, and why I've always steered away from the smaller multifamily and single family, because it's so much harder to project out what your turnover cost is going to be. For us, it's fairly simple. It's, we have 3 years of financials. We know what the turnover cost has been for years and years and years. We have a good understanding of what the turnover rate is for a 200 unit apartment complex. People, you are going to have turnover. It is going to happen. There's no way you can avoid it. Even if you have a voucher property, even if all your units, your whole property is some sort of affordable housing component, whether it's Section 8 or different local, institutions, you're going to have it. So it's going to cost you. And unless you're building something brand new, you have a pretty good idea of what that turnover rate is going to be. Now, if you come in and you decide to jack up rents by 25%, good chance your turnover rate is going to go up, but you can account for those different things. And most people are not jacking rents up 25% without doing something to justify it. So, I think that's always something that has made me more apt to stick with the larger stuff, because I get the question a lot of like, hey, do you own anything on the side for yourself? And I don't. Right now, I own nothing on the side that isn't a property that Toro has done, because I can just spend my time doing stuff there and just buying properties. But also, that's always been a big thing for me. It's like, I don't know how to project out, CapEx reserves and turnover, because it's one thing that breaks, or one turnover, such a larger percentage of your income that you could get hurt very easily, very quickly. Whereas on the larger properties, it's there, what it's been, and you have a pretty good idea of what it's going to be.
So you think so, but believe it or not, it's really, so there's a couple of things. It's statistically proven that people that live in a single family house as a rental stay there much longer.
Oh, for sure.
Especially Section 8 tenants. So the average, right now, the stats that I have, the average Section 8 tenant in a single family house stays there for over 11 years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And the average cash tenant stays for, let's say, 2 years. Those are pretty accurate. Stats.
That makes sense.
So as far as the way I do them is they're all value add type properties. So I buy them totally distressed, stinking like cat piss, and I gut renovate them 100% new. And then I put the tenants in there. Now, once you get a number of these units together, it's not like a house anymore. It's basically an apartment building that's spread out.
Yeah.
So whereas, the vacancy rate on Long Island in a Section 8 building, or, a Section 8, that kind of lower end building is 2%, I'll budget for a 5% vacancy rate. I'll put in for, let's say, a 3% CapEx factor, and I'll even put it above the line to be more conservative, because it is a new place. I have maintenance, management fees, etc. My turnover is very, very, very small.
Hmm.
We don't really have people leave. The places are mint. They're beautiful. We personally inspect them every 4 months to make sure everything's tip top. I mean, where are they going? There's such a massive housing shortage here to begin with.
Yeah. No, it makes a ton of sense. I guess for me, and my concept was always how, the idea has always been, and the question was, why don't you piece off some of your money into doing this? And then with that, because I don't have, the capability to go out and do what you do right now, unless I left and started doing it full time, I don't get the benefit of the large number of units, like you were saying, where you can, rob from Peter to pay Paul on certain units. If you have 2 units on Long Island, and, I also wasn't thinking Section 8. So I'm, in my head, the question was always with cash, where if you have turnover every 2 years and stuff like that. So that was always my thinking, but it definitely makes sense. And what you're saying is definitely making me reconsider some of the things I was thinking about.
You know what it is though, man? You can make a lot of money in any strategy. So
Of course,
I got
100%.
I got the and I didn't understand what it was you. So I learned, multifamily from my mentor Carl. I learned fix and flip. I learned single family rentals. But when I went to NYU, and now I'm in the master's program, I'm dealing with best of the best guys that work for Vornado. I mean, other big REITs, just Rockefeller Group, you name it. And then you start to see like how these guys put deals together. Now, Carl had told me something a very long time ago, which I was like, but he ended up being right, as he's right on everything, which is he didn't say single family houses aren't sexy, but they're not. Single family houses are not sexy. But what I will tell you is what he told me. I've never seen anything out there that makes as much money as those things, bro. Like, it is very easy for me to get infinite returns on a lot of these properties.
Mm-hmm.
Like
how so?
I'll give you an example. The house I bought 2 years ago. I bought a house in a town called Patchogue. You're familiar with Patchogue? It was occupied for $70,000. This is 2 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
$70,000.
What do you mean occupied for 70,000?
So it was a foreclosed property that at the time was being sold. This is when like Hubzu and Zome first came out, and nobody wanted to buy houses on there because they're like, "What kind of asshole are you buying occupied houses on the internet?"
Gotcha.
I'm like, "Well, you can't really get hurt in Patchogue for $70,000."
Mm-hmm.
So I go and I buy this house in Patchogue. It foreclosed on, and there was people in it. They're like, "You deal with the people." Okay. Make a long story short, the woman that was living in the house, it was her house, but she was living with a new boyfriend. Her husband had just up and abandoned her, and that's why she lost the house. He worked a great job for the city. He actually worked for Con Ed. I had a conversation with them, ended up turning them into tenants. They're still there 2.5 years later. Mm-hmm. I buy the house for $70,000. I put $20,000 in just to clean up certain things for them, just as a nice gesture.
Mm-hmm.
And the bank comes in and appraises the property at $250,000 at that time.
Yeah.
So I very frequently are buying houses distressed for 50%, if not less, than what they're going to be worth when I'm done. So by the time I do my refinance, I have zero of my own money in this deal.
Mm-hmm.
So that is unbelievably powerful. I feel like those type of, value adds you don't get in the commercial world because there's really big fish chasing those things. But at the same time, off big numbers, even if the percentages are smaller, they're still really big numbers. And you can make a developer fee and a management fee and, all these other different types of fees. And if you're just projecting, looking at your 5 or 7 or 10-year IRR, and you're making 20+% on a value add, it's still a massive, massive score.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it all comes, there's always a sliding scale of dollars and percentage, right? Like, I wouldn't take a property that needed 100 hours of work that would cost me $1 to make $1,000. It's just not worth my time. The dollars doesn't make sense. Unbelievable ROI, but not worth it. Conversely, I wouldn't take something that made me 1% because I don't have the capital right now that justifies making 1%. So there's always a balancing act of like what matters. And that's why when people say like, who the hell is buying 3 caps in Toronto? Well, it's somebody that probably has a fuck ton of money and is making millions of dollars, even though the percentage return is 3%. So it's that whole sliding scale. I think where it becomes interesting is, for me to buy that, like you did, decade worth of work to get to the place where you're buying a property for 90 all in and appraised for 250. That stuff takes time. It's the same for us. We go out and we find properties that, we think are, way below market, 10, 20, 30%. not to the same degree where we can go in, refi, and appraise it out, because like you said, there's just more fish looking in that area and bigger fish, and your margins are just a little bit thinner. As well as two, I think you can get significantly more creative on individual deals like that than you can on stable occupied multifamily properties. It's significantly tougher to get these crazy massive returns unless you're taking big risks. Like if you come into an area and you're the first person to throw in like A class units, like you go into a C class area, you think it's up and coming, you come in, gut renovate, blow it out for $50,000 a unit, then yeah, maybe if you're the first to the market, but there's risk associated with that. So yeah, I see what you're saying. I just wonder how tough is it for somebody new to get to that stage. Whereas like I'm already, like for me, it's like, what's the opportunity cost for that? That's what I always think of.
To go do single family type stuff.
Yeah.
You know what
That's
it is, man?
what it is.
I think it's like anything. Everything has pros and cons, and it's all a matter of like what you're into, what you're good at, and most importantly, what you like.
Yeah.
I can look at any other asset class or any other industry and be like, that's sexy, that's cool. I see that person making money there, but that doesn't mean that it's right for me or for you. Right? So I think there's pros and cons to what you do and to what I do. So on the single family side, it's from like a liquidation standpoint. If you have a 100-unit building, it's a lot more illiquid than if I have 100 single family houses. I don't need to peel off a percentage of the portfolio to send my kid to college or do whatever. And it's a lot quicker and easier to do that. I can also sell as a performing rental at a cap rate, or I could sell it as a property that someone's going to live in. At the same time, financing these type of properties is a lot harder because the banking world doesn't get it, which I don't really understand, but the banking world doesn't get it. So it's tougher to do that. And I mean, they say that the management aspect of all this stuff is a lot harder. I haven't really seen it yet, but I haven't been around that long to do it. But at this point, by the end of the year, I'll have roughly 100 units. And so far it's been a breeze, man. Yeah.
Well, I think if you've got turnover of, average 11 years, that probably makes management significantly easier. You're not, your leasing activity is probably substantially lower than as if you had a free market portfolio. So I'm sure that makes the management much easier.
So I've had cash tenants leave, like they break up, whatever. I have not had a Section 8 tenant leave.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. So I mean, they don't leave. They typically don't, get off the voucher. Because I mean, listen, it really doesn't pay. I mean, some of these Section 8 tenants that I have, they're getting the equivalent of like $85,000, $90,000 worth of pre-tax benefits.
Yeah.
So I mean, why?
Yeah, no, that's my point. If you've not had a single tenant leave in, let's say it was 3 or 4 years, for us, our properties, a lot of our properties are 40 to 50% turnover. So our whole tenant base on average would have turned over twice in that same period where you've had 0. Now 10 years, it's turned over 5 times, maybe 4 times. So the amount of work and effort into managing a property where, you don't have to do that is significantly easier. So that could be part of the reason why. I also think too, it's all your units are right where you are, and you're a very hands-on type of person. So I'm sure you're checking in more than the person that just says, "Here, manager, take over and manage my properties halfway across the country, and I'm going to trust that you're going to do a good job." Probably 2 very different things as well.
Yeah, I mean, I don't get involved in the process at all, but I've implemented certain standards. Like again, we do full walkthrough inspections every 4 months on a property.
Right.
Every 4 months we're walking the entire property, because it's not like the tenants are bad people, but like sometimes they feel bad calling you, and I don't need to find out a year down the road that the sink's been leaking and the cabinet's rotted out for the last 7 months. You know what I mean?
Yep. Yeah, we do the same thing. We call preventative maintenance every 6 months. So on all of our units and all our properties, same thing. Walk through, make sure there's no leaks, look at the condensers, look at the filters on the ACs, because nobody fucking replaces those, even if you tell them to. And just look at everything and just say, okay, also it helps you pick up things that tenants aren't supposed to be doing. So, a lot of times we have, certain pet fees or things. A lot of times people, tenants will sneak pets in, and they don't have that on their lease. A lot of times there's more people than they say is on the lease. You'll see things like, what else? You just find little things, or like, just see people aren't keeping the unit up to a good standard. and then maybe you want to non-renew them because they're treating the unit like trash and it's just going to get worse. So there's those things too, where you just keep an eye on what tenants are doing and things like that. So no, I think it's a really good practice. I know a lot of people do implement it, but I'm sure there's a lot of individuals who don't, right? If they own, 5 or 10 rentals, they're probably not checking in on it every few months to make sure things are good. So I think that's a really good practice to have.
Yeah, no, you have to. Have you, I mean, in the bigger stuff, I want to do the bigger stuff, but the bigger stuff also that I look at now, which is unbelievable. I don't know how much experience you have in this, is truly affordable housing developments.
Mm-hmm.
So do you have any experience with that at all?
No, I mean, we have very little development experience. I have a buddy, if you look him up, his name's Evan Holiday. He builds affordable in Nashville.
Okay.
He might be a good person to talk to. He's in the process of building like 400 units. He's got like a pipeline of like 1,500 units. Younger guy as well. Really good. Has a really good podcast too called Monumental. Shout out Evan if you're watching. But yeah, I'd reach out to him. He was on the other night and we were talking about it. But he's into some of that stuff where he's like, like your AMI of the median income on like certain units is like 50% or 80% and things like that. So he knows all that stuff.
Has he ever discussed with you how those things go about being financed? Like what's the structure of those things? It's insane.
So we were literally talking. So we were doing this exact thing and he's actually coming on our podcast pretty soon. So I'll probably understand more of it there. But yeah, I mean, he was alluding to all different types of, tax abatements and incentives and different things with the local government to get things financed. And then obviously the different, restrictions in place on, rental units and things like that. But we didn't really do a deep dive.
Yeah. Do you want me to kind of like put a teaser out there about how it goes? Or you want to wait for him on that?
Go for it. I don't care.
So I met a friend at the beginning of my career at NYU like a year and a half ago who works for an affordable housing developer, and he started teaching me to the point where I'm finishing an affordable housing class right now. This stuff is awesome. Mm-hmm. Let's say you can get free land all over the place, but forget about that. Let's say you have to buy the land, whatever. It has to meet certain criteria as far as the value of the land can't exceed 25% of the cost of the entire development. Now, the way these things end up getting financed is really complicated, but to keep it kind of high level, it's either low-income housing tax credits or bonds. Mm-hmm. The end result of all this is this. A lot of the times, most of the times, you are in the deal for absolutely no money. Mm-hmm. So you've got these low-income housing tax credits that you essentially sell on the open market to banks and other tax credit buyers that need them for a number of different reasons. They put up all the construction money. So they've essentially paid for all the construction. You're going to get a 15% developer fee. Sometimes you have to defer some of it and leave it in, but you're going to get a 15% developer fee. You're also going to get a management fee. You're going to manage the property and you own it. A lot of times, zero equity. There's some programs where you have to leave in some equity, but essentially you're either funding these things with bonds, with tax-free bonds, or low-income housing tax credits, and you're making a shit ton of money.
No, I know. I mean, if you're in affordable housing right now, they have such a need. You've probably got such leverage on, these local areas. It's just the hoops and hurdles you're going to have to jump through is crazy. But yeah, I mean, there's a massive shortage of affordable housing. So opportunities, you've got to have a ton of incentive, right? Because otherwise you can just develop it free market, sell the thing for fucking, hundreds of thousands of dollars worth per unit, depending upon where you are. What's your incentive not to do that basically? So it's got to be pretty substantial right now.
A lot of the big Manhattan developers started this way with affordable housing back in the 80s. Related, some of the real big guys, they were essentially giving properties away for $1. But just think about what's going on now. So affordable housing is essential. So all the affordable housing development, they're still building those things. Those guys are still going. There are wait lists of people to get into these buildings. These people never leave. Obviously, the rents are a lot lower. They're like, to your point, 40%, 50% AMI, up to usually, let's say, 130% AMI. But those people never leave. So the percentages, since you're in the deal for minimal to no money, you're still making a massive return. You're still making a 20+%, sometimes infinite return. And at the end, there's certain cases where the government will give you like 1% loans because they'll stack you up first, second, third lien position plus grants, etc.
Mm-hmm.
When the 30 years runs out, a lot of times they forgive those loans if you agree to re-up for another 30 years and keep the building affordable. Because at that point, you could go market, but they don't want you to go market.
Mm-hmm.
So there's just free money all over the place if you know how to work it right. It's nuts.
No, it is. It's definitely interesting. And I mean, I've got, 1,000 questions because, I can think of a ton of stuff, but, that's for another time probably. And I'm curious to see what Evan says. But yeah, I mean, I think that's the biggest thing, right? When you talk to people, and especially now with social media, bigger pockets, things like this, everybody gets so hyped up on like one way of doing things. It's like, there's an infinite amount of ways to get into this business and to do different things. Pigeonholing yourself into one thing or not continuing to examine other opportunities, I think it's tremendously foolish.
Yeah, the one thing I always did from the very beginning of my real estate career is always be learning about every possible asset class out there. And I did it because I don't have to know everything about it, but I just have to know enough to be able to scout out the opportunity, because this enables me. There's always different cycles. So it started out as, you have guys that are just flipping houses in Levittown. But if you can't get houses in Levittown, you're basically out of business. So then I learned how to flip houses all across Long Island. Then I learned how to, build new construction and put dormers on in case those numbers were working better. Then we started doing rentals. Then I started learning about commercial, all the asset classes there. So this way, regardless of what opportunity, like if you have a piece of land, most guys or girls they're like apartment developers or they're industrial developers, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if it doesn't work, if the land or the site or whatever that the local municipality's initiative at that moment doesn't work for that asset class, you're shit out of luck.
Mm-hmm.
But if you understand self-storage, medical, multifamily, assisted living, affordable housing, all these things, you can partner with the right people or you have the right consultants, you can make something out of nothing far more often than anybody else.
No, 100%. I think that's really interesting because I'm curious what your thoughts are on this. As this, pandemic is occurring, are you looking at all at, potentially trying to find like distressed hotels or retail sites coming out of this, or no?
So the asset classes that I've liked for the past like year and a half, 2 years, and I did a video about this, was I like medical, I like self-storage, I like anything affordable, and I like anything senior. Mm-hmm. That is pretty much it. Mm-hmm. So yeah, could there be some repurposing opportunities? Perhaps. But I mean, Long Island's very tough as far as zoning, the municipalities, getting anything done. I mean, people, Long Island is the land of NIMBY. It is the hardest place to get anything done anywhere, I would argue. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I think there's going to be a lot. But, in the retail space, I'll buy retail, but I have to buy retail based on heavy duty parking requirements, like a minimum of like 6 or 7 per 1,000 square feet of space parking, mm-hmm. or location, traffic count, that kind of stuff. This way, you're always going to get that A-class tenant. Mm-hmm. But my big thing is, I think America as a whole, business people in America need to basically, reinvent the way they do business.
In what regard?
So as far as, you have these retail spaces, things are changing. You don't need giant big box stores. You don't need things like that. You need more, like people have said, experiential retail. But people have to change their business models. They haven't really caught up to it yet. They have to change their business models and evolve in order to be able to utilize this space in a profitable and different way. And as landlords, we kind of have to wait for that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, I think, everybody's been talking about shifting towards retail that's service-based. So like the dog groomer, the laundromat, the nail salon, instead of, the Dollar General or something like that, where it's, I can buy my shampoo online, but I can't necessarily get my, dog groomed online. Yeah. There's ones that'll come to you, but it's cheaper to go to a place. So things like that. I also think too, the first company that figures out how to lean into, the brick and mortar and the online experience coexisting and playing off each other is going to crush it. I don't think anybody's done that yet. I know like people have done like putting up QR codes when you're in the store to scan and buy online and things like that, but it's still like very segregated. I don't know what it looks like. I don't know if it's like a fucking augmented reality or something like that, but that's the only, like you said, people are just continually shifting away from going in, and this is only going to make it even worse. Now, people that have never thought about grocery shopping online are now going to do it. So, just things like that. People are going to continue to utilize more technology and be more comfortable with it as they're being forced to use it. So it's going to change everything.
Yeah, no, without a doubt. And it basically, it makes certain commercial buildings not worthless, but worth very little. Like, I'll give you an example. Long Island is the land of strip malls.
Mm-hmm.
So you used to have these small strip malls. They're like 2 stores. Let's say they're 1,000 to 1,500 square foot each. They have 2 parking spots and they're on a main road. Today, those buildings you can't get them to cash flow. They're worth shit. They don't make any sense. So now you have to think, like, how do you repurpose something like that? Who's your tenant going to be? How are the numbers going to work? The taxes are bananas. The municipality hasn't adjusted zoning or, is enabling developers to repurpose these buildings into something that would make sense. So it's going to take some time. It really is. That's why, like, I love the affordable stuff. I love the Section 8 stuff. I love the trailers, the trailer parks. I've been wanting to drive by a trailer park for freaking 15 years. I love that you guys are doing that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I think the lower end isn't sexy, but there's always a demand.
Oh, for sure. No, I know. Yeah. I mean, that's what a ton of people preach. Everybody wants to own the 100-story high-rise skyscraper in Manhattan, but it probably makes you next to no. They're legacy buildings. A lot of those things don't even make you money. You just own it for the sake of owning it. So it's like owning a sports team. A lot of time, a lot of those things don't cash flow, but they're owning it because they want a sports team and, they think the value is going to go up in the future, but it's not netting you money, I don't think.
Yeah, but if you're the developer, you're getting a piece of free equity, you're getting a developer fee, you're getting a this fee, a that fee, and it makes sense for them if they're doing it. But to just go into a 3-cap building doesn't make sense to most people unless you're, some kind of pension fund that's looking to really diversify and needs real stable assets.
No, for sure. Awesome. I think that's a really good place to wrap up. Obviously, anybody on Instagram, that isn't following you, doesn't know, you can just click on the bubble and go do it. But for anybody on YouTube watching this recording afterwards, where can people follow you? Where can they learn about the event? Where can they learn more about you?
Love it. Thank you, man. Really appreciate the time. This is a blast. Handsome_homebuyer is my Instagram handle. Charles Weinraub is my name, WEINRAUB. If you get into my social media, I have, YouTube. We do a weekly podcast as well, vlog, etc. The event, April 19th. If you hear this before that, go to lirealestaterevolution.com. It's totally free. Register. We have over 2,000 people registered right now in the last week. I don't know. Did you know that? Did I tell you that?
No, that's amazing.
Yeah, we're crushing it, man.
2,000 extra just in the last week?
2,000, like, since we started taking the registration, which has been like a week and a half, we have 2,000 people.
Oh, wow. That's amazing. Yeah, I did not realize it was that big.
Yeah, plus it's going to be, shared and kicked around. So I think we could easily get 3,000+ people tuning in on this. I've heard people are actually getting together to do watch parties, believe it or not.
Wow.
In the Corona world. So people are pumped up, man. The speakers are awesome. I can't wait to hear you guys throw down and everybody else. And if you have the ability to donate, it's going to an awesome cause. It's just a real good, feel-good event.
Absolutely. No, I'm excited to be a part of it. Thanks so much for doing this. You got any final thoughts, words of wisdom, advice, tips, something to leave us off with?
Yeah, I mean, anybody out there who is new to the real estate game and wants to be involved, the thing that I always preach the most, which everybody hates me for, is get the education. Get the education. 100%. I mean, go to local RIAs, get yourself a mentor, invest in a coach that is going to really help and train you. And it doesn't have to be some crazy $50,000 program or a $30,000 program. There are people out there that will teach you, and it's better to spend a year or 2 or 3 years. It took me 3 years of training before I ever did a deal to have a lifetime of success than it is to just jump into something and get burned.
Love it. Beautiful. Awesome. Thank you guys so much for watching, whether it's IG Live or YouTube. Appreciate it. Make sure you go check out Charles. Follow him everywhere. He's crushing it. Thank you so much for doing this, bud. Appreciate it.
Appreciate it, man. Talk to you later.
Yep. See ya.